Everyone's having a good morning, St. Anne's. I hope everyone's having a marvelous Friday. We are going to be reading chapter 2 this morning in our book, Lemons by Melissa Savage. In chapter 2, our author discusses three of some of my favorite groups and singers from the 60s and 70s. Number one is Simon and Garfunkel. James Taylor, and Cat Stevens. I hope you take some time to look up their music. Simon and Garfunkel is still one of my very favorite groups today. And I'm going to call a shout out to Miss Fuller because I know she simply loves James Taylor. So I'm going to begin chapter 2 now. Y'all have a marvelous weekend, and I do miss each and every one of you. Chapter 2, the second worst day of my life. Lemonade, the old man says slowly. It's like he's trying it on for size. His eyes from under unruly gray eyebrows in front, in the hall of one of the old farmhouses that are lined up on 7th Street. The lady turned up the driveway of a medium-sized white house. It has yellow shutters on the front of it. We walk up 5 wooden steps and onto a great big porch that wraps all the way around the front of it. It has a bright yellow swing just to the front of the porch. Inside, it's nothing like our apartment in the city. It's cold and it's dark and it smells like old books and coffee beans. At home, we live on the 3rd floor of a Victorian walk-up. Mama painted every single wall pink and she hung white fluffy curtains at all the windows, and there were always beautiful fresh daisies on the kitchen counter, except for in winter. She had the record playing going all the time, usually Simon and Garfunkel or Cat Stevens, sometimes James Taylor. This place doesn't have anything playing, not a television set or a radio or anything. And the walls, well, the walls are just plain white, only boring wooden blinds at the windows. We meant to get here by 4, but the traffic in the city was just awful, the social worker tells the man. It's weird that I can't remember her name, since we only drove 6 whole hours to get to this place. We even played a round of alphabet game until my eyelids got so heavy I couldn't keep them open anymore. I was winning the game up until then, after spotting a Q on liquor store sign outside of Reading. Not a problem, not a problem, the man tells her, continuing to eye me. I eye him right back. He's missing the middle part of his hair, like somebody divided his head into thirds and decided to subtract the middle part. I'm real good at math. I got an A in Mr. Mahoney's math class, and everybody knows Mr. Mahoney gives the hardest test at Sherman Elementary. Lemonade, the man says again, running a hand through one of the thirds of his hair that's still there. It's black and wavy with speckles of gray mixed in. There's a short beard right around his mouth that has even more gray in it than the ring around his head. He has on a checkered short-sleeved shirt and long tan shorts with hiking boots and tall white socks that come all the way up to his knees. Lemonade Liberty Wit, I say, standing up straight. Lem, for short. I'm 10 3/4. I'll be 11 on September 6th. Uh-huh. He pulls his horn-rimmed glasses up from his checkered shirt pocket, and he slips them on his nose to examine me some more. There's a bright silver ring on his finger. Small for 10 3/4, aren't you? He's full of all kinds of questions that don't seem to want answers. So he doesn't get an answer. I cross my arms and I glare at him instead. Same green eyes. And he clears his throat. Those same red curls. I swallow hard. Can you tell us where Lemonade will be staying while she's here, Mr. Witt? The lady asks with straight-lipped smile stretched across her teeth. He sighs and he stuffs his glasses back in his front pocket. This way, 2nd door on the right, he grumbles, making his way down the dark hall just past the kitchen. Grab your suitcase, he calls over his shoulder. My fingers curl around the handle of Mama's pink suitcase, but the lady waves my hand away and she grabs it for me. I follow, my eyes fixed on the bouncing red tag that's tied to the handle with bright orange and green crocheted yard braid. It has Mama's handwriting on it. Elizabeth Lily Witt, 245 Ashbury Street, apartment 3095, San Francisco, California. The wooden wall floorboards in the hall groan under each step, and there's a loud ticking from the clock somewhere in the house. The plain white walls in the hall are filled with crooked hanging picture frames telling the story of a very happy family. The house is quiet, too quiet. There are no sounds of traffic or honking horns or bustling feet of people on their way to their offices. There's not even an opera singing from Miss K in room 3096, practicing for her evening performance at the San Francisco Opera. Just a moaning floor, a ticking clock, and the sound of my own pulse pounding against my temple. I just stop outside the second door on the right, and I peek inside. This can't be it. Maybe he meant the third door on the left. I watch the social worker plop Mama's suitcase on top of a blue and green wool blanket that's pulled tight across a single mattress. There's a ratty trunk at the end of the bed and a wooden chest of drawers with bronze handles in the far corner. An old radiator sits under the windows. It has cobwebs near the floorboards and 100 dull-looking grown-up books that line a wall of bookshelves. It's my study, the old man says, kind of like it's an apology. It's the best I could do on such short notice. His voice trails off into a whisper. He clears his throat again. I had no idea. It's just fine, the lady says. Lemonade, why don't you just put some of your things in the drawer while I talk with your grandfather? Grandfather? He must be a mind reader, too, because he clears his throat a bunch more times and he says, You can call me Charlie, before making his way out of the door. She follows him, her lips in the same straight line smile, but before she closes the door, she meets my eyes once more. I'll be back to check on you in 1 month. I'll check on you each month, she says, but I don't say anything. It's going to be okay, she tells me. It really, really is. Except, I really don't know who she's trying to convince. No, it's not, I tell her. It's never going to be okay again. She smiles that kind of smile, like she thinks she understands me, even though I know she doesn't. No one does, except maybe Miss Cotton and all my friends at home. They understand me because they were there on the very single worst day of my entire life. I bite the inside of my cheek to keep the tears from dropping down and watch her slowly pull the door close behind her. I sit down next to Mama's suitcase. The blue and green wool blanket itches me on my backs of my legs. Dolores. Dolores Jaworski. That's the social worker's name. I sure hope the next time I see her, she has those papers from Miss Cotton she was talking about, because there's simply no way I can stay here. There's no fluffy down comforter with big, beautiful rainbows on it, like the one I have at home, and no plastic stars on the ceiling that glow when the lights are off. And there's not even a warm, fuzzy rug in the middle of the floor for icy cold mornings. The floor is bare naked. This has to be just one big, horrible mistake. It's got to be a miserable nightmare that I'll wake up from at any moment. I want to cry and scream and run. I want to run until I make it all the way back home. My forearm wipes at the tears that find their way down my cheeks. I touch the red tag on the handle and I finger the bright orange and green crocheted yard braid that holds it in place. "Elizabeth Lily Whit," I whisper, "why on earth did you leave me?